everyone. This is Steve again with, usually I call these mission spotlights, but today we're not talking with one of our church planners, but we're talking with one of our pastors, and just some good things that are happening in his church, and want to spend some time with him. And so if you've never had the opportunity to meet Brother Carl Short, you're in for a privilege today and a blessing. Brother Carl pastors our church in Kansas City, the Victory Church on the north side of Kansas City. Been there for probably about a year, maybe a little over. And but anyway, Brother Carl, how are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining me today. I've just been excited about what God's doing at Victory, and I know we got a long way to go, but it's certainly changed from where it was a year ago. Just if you would just share a little bit about yourself, and then about how the church has kind of turned around a little bit.
Sure, be glad to. Yeah. Well, I'm bivocational or co-vocational, however you want to say that. I work a full-time job with a truck company, and then pastor on the weekends and through the week with the Victory Church. So we've been working there good solid year and a half, I think. And so from that we've just kind of jumped into the mix with the church and the people there. They've really loved on us and just have really pulled us along. So,
tell us a little bit about your family. What's your wife's name?
My wife is Nancy. Her name's Nancy. She works at home actually. Her business. They pushed everybody out back in COVID in 2020, and she's been able to work from home ever since. Then I've got 3 kids. We've got 2 of our kids are here in Kansas City, and then our one son is up in Michigan. He's married. He's got our only 2 grandkids up there. So if we want to see grandkids, we have to go to the cold north. Other than that, we got everybody else down here in Kansas City.
Now, you've been part of the Life Point Church over in Blue Springs up until you went to pastor there at Victory, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I'm originally from Kansas City, so I kind of grew up in the Central Church with that in Grandview, and then came back here after being gone for about 30 years with the military and college and work and everything. But yeah, so when we came back here, we were at the Life Point Church in Blue Springs, and then went over to Victory Church and started pastoring over there.
Okay. Well, tell me where the church was when you started a year and a half ago, kind of the situation the church was in.
Oh my, the church, I think they were close to ready to close the doors over there. The people were they had gone through some rough patches, and they were really, you could just feel it. They were down. They were depressed. They weren't sure if they could continue on. And I heard that from several of the people there. We're just not sure if we really have a church here anymore. And so they let me come in and start preaching to them, and that was a blessing, at least for me. I don't know about for them, but it was a blessing for me to be able to. I had just finished the master's program, the Master's of Theology and Ministry down at Welch, and so they let me kind of put some of that stuff into practice and preaching, and then we started rolling.
Good. Now, what were some of the first things you did to kind of, how did God start turning the ship a little bit into a more positive direction?
Sure. I think the first thing that we saw that really started turning things around was the renovation of the restrooms. Our restrooms, the church itself, the building's about 50 years old, and so obviously with that much age on it, the church needed a lot of maintenance, and it had not been maintained just due to financial reasons, And so we actually I had a conversation with the board leadership of the church and asked them, said, what top 3 things do you think we should try to tackle maintenance wise with the church? And the restrooms seemed to come to the top on everybody's list. And so I said, well, let's go at that. We had some money, and I said, let's get some bids and work on the restroom. And so we went out and got the bids, and the bids scared everybody. The cost of renovation, is not cheap. And so they came back with the bids, and they said, boy, this this is a lot. Maybe we could do this ourselves. They kind of started that conversation. I said, look, if we don't get somebody in here, a contractor, to do this, it's not going to be done right. And they were real hesitant. And I said, well, we got two choices. We can either renovate or we can sell. What do you want to do? And they said, well, let's renovate. So they went for the renovation. But even that, you could feel that it was just a real hard push for them to kind of make that decision. It's a real challenge for them. But the blessing that came afterwards was amazing. Everybody in the whole church just started coming alive from that point.
Yeah. Just kind of created some excitement around the church, I guess. Just the
It did. Yeah. And then from there, we started doing some other little things, not big things, just little things. And then some other projects came along. But in between the projects, what I started to notice is that God was starting to move in the people's hearts, and you could really sense that excitement. We had one of the sons of one of the members. He'd been kind of a wayward son, kind of the prodigal son, and he came back to the church. He rededicated his life. He brought his wife with him. They got back in the church, and they really got on fire quick. They started witnessing to their friends. They started bringing their neighbors, and you could just feel the excitement through them. This gentleman, he had sung in a rock band, so he had some real musical talent, and he started wanting to sing gospel songs. And so every Sunday he'd get up and he'd sing a gospel song. He'd bring his neighbors, say, "Hey, I'm going to sing on Sunday. Come and listen to me." And they would come, and so he was bringing people in, and boy, everybody just got excited.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, what we started seeing was we started working on some other outreach programs. We tapped into, well, we tried some things. Some things hadn't quite gone. We tried the Child Evangelism Fellowship. I'm on the board here in Kansas City for that organization, but our church, our people are just they're just kind of a little bit past the age where that's going to work for them. But we were energized by at least the training. We went through the training on that and got energized. But we were trying some different things. Here recently, we've tapped into the Hope Project, Hope Initiative with Tom Rayner. And the way I approached that a little bit differently. I put together just like a little flyer, and each week on Wednesday night, I would put like 7 or 8 days of the Hope Initiative together in this flyer, and then we'd talk about how to approach this. And so each week, our Wednesday night people, they would give it a try. Some of them would do some things, some of them would do other things, but we were just starting to see some movement in the waters. God was moving as we were doing some of the facility renovations. We were doing some outreach. And so it seemed like God was just opening doors for us in each of those situations.
Yeah. Well, tell me about some of the outreach events that you did try to reach the community.
Sure. Well, one of the things we did actually, which kind of was a part of the Hope Initiative, was there's this app that you can download on your phone called your Next Door Neighbor. And so I downloaded that on my phone and just kind of connected with some of our neighbors. But then we were through the Hope Initiative also. We were doing some of the prayer walks and some of the letter writing and just some of the different activities that are listed there. And here in this last Sunday, we actually had a gentleman that visited Sunday evening. He said he'd been driving by the church for, I don't know, 18 years or so. He'd been driving by this church, going to work. And he said, every time I go by, I tell myself I'm going to stop. And we found out that he was on this particular road that we had gone through and did a prayer walk through. And so, I think God just starts working in those situations. People are out there and they're just waiting for us. I think God just, knows that they're just waiting for us to start doing something. And then the doors start to open up for us.
Yeah. Now you've also had a new group start meeting in your church on Sunday afternoon as well.
We We will have, yeah. Through my work, I work at a truck company, as I mentioned earlier, and through that, I had started to see a lot of entry-level drivers that had come out of Africa from I don't know, Ethiopia, from Sudan, from Somalia, from all the different African countries. And a lot of what I discovered at work was, as we talked with these new drivers, a lot of them transition into the States from refugee camps, primarily through the Sudan refugee camp. And some of them will spend up to 15 years in that refugee camp before they get their visa to come to the States. And so as I was talking with these new drivers and learning about their life coming into the States and the hardships that they had, I just, started to get a passion for how can we help these people? What can we do? And I knew it was going to be through our church. I just felt like somehow it had to be through the church. In the work environment, we're just not equipped to culturally, get them saturated through the American culture and all of those kind of things. And so I just felt like if we could get them into the church, that would be good. And I started looking at all the different local agencies and how we could connect. I ran into just dead ends. I couldn't seem to get anywhere. But lo and behold, as we were working on these hope initiatives and as we were doing different ways of outreach in our community, we had a gentleman call the church up and he said, "Hey, can we want to talk to you about your church." And so he came to one of our board meetings and presented what he wanted. He represented a church of about 60, 70 people, and they were looking for a place to worship. They had a place, but it had burned down. It got caught in a fire somehow or another. And so for the last year and a half, they've been looking for a place. And so we talked with them. The church was very open to the idea of letting them use the facility Sunday afternoon, kind of sandwiched in between our morning and our evening service. And so they'll be in that afternoon time period. And boy, I tell you what, the excitement when these people came, they came through and there was about a dozen of them came over and looked at the church. They walked through it and we showed them the facility and they were just like, wow, they were like, this is home for us. They really felt like this is the place. And our church people just opened their hearts to them. So the end of this month, they're going to start their worship service in the afternoon with us. So
Great.
we're just excited about that.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up today with this. If you had the opportunity, and hopefully you have some guys listening to you right now, pastors that their church is where Victory was 18 months ago, what would you say to them? What would be 3 or 4 things that you would just encourage them in?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I focused my attention on was presenting the leadership of we need to go here, but at the same time turning it over to the church to get them connected with it, to challenge them to take ownership. For example, on the restroom remodeling, I didn't go out and get the bids. I asked 2 or 3 of the guys on the board to go out and get the bids. And so they physically went out and got those bids. And then when it came to making the decisions about what renovation project we would do, I had my list, but I made sure that everybody else had their list. And then we collaborated. So just really putting the ownership in the hands of the people, especially the leadership board, just putting ownership in their hands, but giving them just enough of a nudge, just enough guidance to let them know that, hey, we can do this, and encourage them, and then challenge them, as I said earlier. Hey guys, we could either sell the church or we can renovate. We got to make a choice. And so kind of giving them that stark reality of, we can't just sit here on this building. We have to make momentum one way or the other. And so those kind of challenges, giving ownership and just kind of a gentle nudge, because what I saw in our people was that they were scared, they had anxiety, they were fearful, that they didn't know which way to go. Maybe they had some bad leadership before, and they were just beat up. They were tired, they were beat up, and they really just needed somebody to encourage them and give them a chance to believe in themselves. And I think I think that's what the Lord allowed us to do in this situation.
It's amazing when we get our focus on the things that matter to God, how he starts working through us to do what he wants to accomplish. And that sounds like what's happened there. And so that's great. And it sounds like the Hope Initiative played a pretty good role, at least right now. It's playing a pretty important role in the work as well.
I think we had a lot of the ideas and concepts of the Hope Initiative already kind of incubated and working, but I think it just kind of brought everything together in one place for us and just kind of showed our people, it's right here in this one package that we can unfold. So yeah, it definitely played a big part.
Well, just before we wrap up, I just want to say to everybody, if you don't know what the Hope Initiative is, you can contact me. You can contact Brother Carl. You can talk to Dr. Eddie Moody in Nashville, and he'll be glad to tell you that's something that our denomination is getting behind and promoting right now, and it is something that's making a difference. And so if you're in a place where you're not sure what to do next, I would encourage you to try that and see what God does through it. And I'm excited about it, man. Thanks, Carl, for sharing today. I am so thankful that you're a part of our state association, and I guess it'd be okay if folks had questions or whatever, that they could contact you through me and
definitely
pass along your information to them. So, but anyway, it's great to have you today, and we'll look forward to maybe talking again down the road. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Steve. It's been great being with you.